He was known in the neighborhood as the cop's son, but inside his own heart, he felt like a ghost. His father wore a badge that commanded respect, yet that same badge often kept him away from home: late nights, emergency calls, endless shifts. As a child, the boy waited by the window, hoping to hear his father's footsteps. Most nights, he fell asleep before they ever came. At school, expectations weighed heavily on him. Teachers assumed he would be disciplined and successful because of his father's profession. Classmates either admired him or mocked him, but no one truly understood him. When he struggled with anger and loneliness, there was no one to notice. Slowly, frustration hardened into resentment, not just toward his father, but toward the uniform he wore. Seeking attention and belonging, he found comfort on the streets. Older boys welcomed him, not as a cop's son, but as one of their own. Late nights turned into fights, and fights turned into habits. Underground boxing rings and street brawls became his escape, a place where pain felt easier than emptiness. Each bruise told a story of rage he couldn't explain. Each punch was a silent scream for a father who was always saving others. Though surrounded by people, he felt more alone than ever, standing in the shadows of a life he never chose, slowly drifting toward a darkness he didn't know how to escape. That night began like many others, anger simmering just beneath the surface, clouding his judgment. A heated argument at the underground fight spiraled out of control. Words turned into shoves, shoves into punches, and soon chaos erupted. Someone pulled a knife. In that instant, fear replaced rage, but it was already too late. He ran. His footsteps echoed through narrow streets as he pushed his body beyond its limits. The city felt unfamiliar, hostile. Neon lights blurred as blood soaked through his shirt from a deep wound in his side. Every breath burned. Behind him, angry voices and footsteps closed in, fueled by revenge and adrenaline. He turned into a dark alley, hoping to disappear, but his strength failed him. His legs gave out, and he slammed against a cold brick wall before collapsing onto the wet pavement. The rain began to fall, mixing with blood, washing it toward the drains. His vision blurred, and memories flashed. His childhood, his mother's worried eyes, his father in uniform walking out the door again and again. Lying there, he realized how small one bad decision could become, and how deadly. For the first time, the fights didn't feel powerful. They felt pointless. He tried to stand, to scream for help, but only a weak groan escaped his lips. As darkness closed in, he wondered if this alley would be his final destination, if this single night, this single choice, had just cost him his life. Just as the darkness began to swallow him, a distant sound cut through the rain: sirens. At first, it felt unreal, like something from a fading dream. Red and blue lights flickered against the walls of the alley, casting moving shadows over his broken body. The footsteps he feared were gone, replaced by firm, urgent voices calling for backup. 2 police officers rushed toward him without hesitation. One knelt beside him, pressing a gloved hand against the wound. Though barely conscious, he felt something unexpected: safety. The very people he had learned to resent were now shielding him from the cold and the chaos. The ambulance arrived, sirens echoing through the night. As they lifted him onto the stretcher, one officer held his hand, refusing to let him slip away. Streetlights blurred overhead as the vehicle sped toward the hospital. He didn't know their names. He didn't see their faces clearly. But in that moment, the police weren't symbols or uniforms. They were the thin line between life and death, pulling him back from the edge when he could no longer save himself. The call came just after midnight. A senior officer answered it routinely, expecting another update from patrol. Instead, the words on the other end froze his blood. Unidentified young male, critical condition, admitted to city hospital. Something in the tone made his chest tighten. Years on the force had taught him to trust his instincts, and this one screamed danger. He arrived at the hospital still in uniform, badge heavy on his chest. The smell of antiseptic and the echo of hurried footsteps filled the corridor. Doctors moved quickly behind glass doors, their expressions serious. Then a nurse approached, holding an ID recovered from the boy's pocket. The name hit him like a blow. It was his son. The world seemed to tilt. His knees weakened as he leaned against the wall, removing his cap with trembling hands. In all his years chasing criminals and responding to emergencies, nothing had prepared him for this moment. He had faced bullets without fear, but this? This was terror in its purest form. Guilt flooded in. Missed birthdays. Unanswered calls. Nights when duty came before family. He replayed every moment he wasn't there, wondering if things could have been different. Through the glass, he saw his son lying motionless, surrounded by machines, fighting a battle he never knew about. For the first time, the strong, unshakable officer felt helpless. All his authority, all his experience meant nothing here. Standing in that cold hallway, he realized that saving the world meant nothing if he had failed to save his own child. When he finally opened his eyes, the world felt strangely quiet. The harsh pain was dulled by medication, replaced with a deep ache that ran through his body. Soft beeping sounds surrounded him. White walls. Clean sheets. A hospital room. For a moment, he didn't know where he was, or why he was still alive. Then memories rushed back. The alley. The knife. The rain. His breath caught as he tried to move, only to feel the weight of bandages and tubes. Panic flickered, but a calm voice from the doorway steadied him. A police officer stood there, watching him carefully, relief visible on his face. Another officer spoke gently, explaining how close he had come to dying, and who had brought him in. It was the police. The word struck deeper than the wound ever had. The same people he had mocked, blamed, and avoided were the ones who had refused to let him bleed out alone in the dark. They hadn't asked his name. They hadn't judged his choices. They had simply saved him. As the officers left, his gaze shifted to the chair beside his bed. His father sat there in silence, eyes red, shoulders heavy with exhaustion. Shame washed over him. For the first time, he saw the fear he had caused, the nights of worry he never noticed. Tears filled his eyes as guilt settled into his chest. Not the loud, angry guilt he was used to, but a quiet, crushing realization. He had been given a second chance by the very people he thought were his enemies. And deep down, he knew he could never be the same again. The nights in the hospital were long and quiet. Machines hummed softly, and the world outside faded into darkness. Every time he woke, his father was there, sitting in the same chair, uniform replaced by tired eyes and folded hands. No anger. No lectures. Just presence. That silence spoke louder than any shouting ever could. The son watched his father age in those nights. Lines of worry etched deeper with every beep of the monitor. This wasn't the fearless cop he saw on the streets. This was a father terrified of losing his child. The realization cut deep. For years, he had believed his father chose duty over him. Now he understood, his father had been carrying the weight of protecting everyone, including him, all along. One night, as rain tapped softly against the window, the boy reached out and held his father's hand. It was a simple gesture, but it broke something open between them. No words were needed. In that quiet moment, he made a promise, not spoken, not written, but etched into his soul. If he survived, he would change. Not for applause. Not for forgiveness. But because he owed life itself something better. That promise became his anchor. While his body healed, his mind began to shift. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. He felt accountable, to his father, to the officers who saved him, and to the second chance he had nearly lost forever. Recovery was slow and painful. Physical therapy tested his limits, but it also reminded him that strength could be rebuilt the right way. Once cleared by doctors, he walked into a boxing gym, not the underground rings of chaos, but a place of discipline and structure. The smell of sweat and leather filled the air, but this time, it felt different. Training became his therapy. Early mornings. Controlled movements. Respect for rules. Every punch thrown at the heavy bag carried purpose, not rage. His coach taught him that real fighters weren't reckless, they were disciplined. That lesson stuck. For the first time, fighting wasn't about proving toughness, it was about mastering himself. Some days were harder than others. Old anger crept back, whispering familiar temptations. But when his fists trembled, he remembered the hospital bed. The alley. His father's tired eyes. That memory grounded him. It reminded him why he was fighting, to move forward, not backward. With each session, confidence replaced chaos. His body grew stronger, but more importantly, his mind grew calmer. Fighting no longer destroyed him, it rebuilt him. The boy who once used violence to escape pain was now learning to channel it into discipline, self-respect, and control, finally fighting for reasons that mattered. His first official match came months later. The small arena buzzed with energy, cheers, lights, tension thick in the air. As he stepped into the ring, nerves tightened his chest. This wasn't a street fight. This was a test of who he had become. Across from him stood an opponent who fought dirty with words, mocking the police, mocking his past. The insults burned. Old instincts flared. For a moment, he felt the familiar pull toward reckless rage. But then he glanced at the crowd. And saw his father. Standing quietly. Watching. Trusting him. The bell rang. He fought clean. Every movement controlled. Every strike measured. When provoked, he didn't retaliate emotionally. He stayed focused. The crowd noticed. So did the judges. When the final bell rang, his hand was raised in victory, not because he was the most aggressive, but because he was the most disciplined. Applause filled the arena. But the moment that mattered most came afterward. His father met him outside the ring, pride shining in his eyes. No words were spoken. None were needed. That night, he didn't just win a match, he proved to himself that he had truly changed. Success in the ring brought attention, but he chose a different spotlight. Instead of chasing fame, he began visiting youth centers, schools, and community gyms. He spoke to boys who reminded him of himself, angry, lost, convinced the world was against them. He didn't preach. He told the truth. He spoke about the alley. The blood. The fear. And the police officers who saved him when he least deserved it. For many, it was the first time they heard such a story from someone who had lived on both sides of the line. His honesty broke walls that authority never could. Slowly, he became a bridge between the police and the youth. Officers attended his talks, not as enforcers, but as humans. Conversations replaced confrontation. Respect replaced hostility. He realized that justice wasn't just about laws, it was about understanding. Each time a teenager listened instead of walked away, he felt closer to fulfilling the promise he made in that hospital room. His past no longer defined him. It fueled him. He wasn't erasing who he was transforming it into something meaningful. Years passed, but that night in the alley never faded. It became a reminder, not a wound. Standing at sunrise outside a city gym, he reflected on how close he had come to losing everything. The streets that once trapped him now felt distant. He was no longer known as the troubled cop's son. He was a fighter, a mentor, a survivor. His relationship with his father had grown stronger than ever, built on honesty, respect, and shared healing. They didn't need to say much. They had already survived the worst together. Sometimes, he visited the police station, not out of obligation, but gratitude. He never forgot the officers who pulled him back from the edge. Their actions rewrote his story. Life hadn't become perfect. Struggles remained. But now, he faced them head-on, with purpose and control. One night of darkness had led to a lifetime of clarity. Because when the police saved his life, they didn't just stop the bleeding. They gave him the chance to become the man he was always meant to be.